Hello again, Sunshine Fam. How's everybody doing today? It is getting colder outside, and we had somewhere between 1 to 7 inches of snow yesterday. Apparently, northern Minnesota got 38 inches of snow. I thought that was a typo, but apparently not. But today I want to talk about events, news events that you don't really hear about anymore in the news at large, except for one story that broke today. So I want to start out because I've been watching this guy. He's a stand-up comedian named Sammy, and at the end of every one of his shows, he always says "Free Palestine," and it got me thinking about everything that has happened since 2023. And I'm thinking, why are these people supporting Palestine? And then I realized I really don't know that much about what's going on between Israel and the Hamas and Gaza and Palestine and all this stuff. So I decided to look that information up. So I'm just going to read you what I found on Google. Of course, we don't always trust everything Google says, but so I'm just going to read this to you to kind of catch you guys up, because it's not really talked about that much in the news. The news is all about Epstein. Now Iran. I didn't put any of that information in here. So the October 7th, 2023 attacks on Israel was led by Hamas, which governs the Gaza Strip, with involvement from several other Palestinian armed factions, and in some cases civilians. Evidence indicates at least 5 other Palestinian militant groups joined Hamas, having trained together for the assault. Now let's think back to October 7th, 2023. I looked up videos about that time yesterday, and I was watching one video where it was taken by several people that were at that festival in Israel that was very close to the Gaza border. Now, they do have this thing over the skies of Gaza called the Dome, where if they suspect that there's going to be any attack, then they can counterattack before any bombs or missiles or anything hit in Israel. So thousands of people were attending this festival, kind of out in the desert, and it was some kind of a Jewish holiday. I'm not Jewish, so I don't know which holiday that would be, but it came as a big surprise to everybody. I mean, everybody. And then after the fact, they realized that the reason they weren't suspected of coming in, I'm saying Hamas was not they weren't detected, that's the word I'm looking for, was because somehow the Hamas was able to disable the satellite system so that they could get in as a surprise attack, kind of like 9/11 or Pearl Harbor here in the U.S. Well, while these people were out celebrating and dancing to the music and having a good time overnight, it was pretty early in the morning, but the sun was rising, and the people that were out at this festival were enjoying the beautiful sunrise and the music and everything. And all of a sudden, they started hearing these booms. So they're like, "Oh, okay. Well, maybe this is part of the music." And then they realize they're seeing contrails in the sky, and they're like, "Well, we're protected. We've got the dome." So they're calling their parents and going, "We're seeing contrails in the sky, but we're fine. Everything's good here." Well, that quickly gave way to terror, because not only was Hamas paratrooping in from the sky, they also broke through the fence line. And I'm not sure if the Hamas knew that this festival was going on. You'd think that they'd have to, because it wasn't like they could look across the fence and see the festival. It was in a little ways. But that's where they headed, was to this festival. And these party goers were basically sitting ducks because, like I said, it was out in the middle of the desert. And all of a sudden, all these people are being shot and killed for no reason. They weren't, they were just out there celebrating. They weren't antagonizing the Hamas or anything. They were just out there celebrating their holiday, their Jewish holiday. And so these people were calling their parents saying we're okay, and then shortly thereafter they're calling their parents going, we're not okay, we're being shot at by the Hamas, and we're terrified for our lives. And so the parents on the other end are like, oh my God. So they're getting in their cars and rushing to the area to try to protect their loved ones, and they're getting caught in the crossfire. So then here at home, shortly thereafter, a few months I think after that, all of a sudden college kids were attacking Jewish people or Israeli people at the college. Even though some of them may have been friends with these people, they were attacking them because of Israel fighting back because of this attack. And I'm like, do these college kids not remember why? What the reason would be for Israel to protect themselves? What started this in the first place? It was an unprovoked attack. And yet they're beating up these Israelis and Jewish people on their campuses. So I was starting to get upset hearing that Americans were doing that to their fellow students. Whether they knew these people or not, I don't know. But I thought that they need to go back and rewatch what happened on October 7th and realize that these people were just trying to defend themselves. That really bothered me. So then it started coming to light to me the last few days. So I started looking this information up. So let me continue. So key actors. While Hamas orchestrated the attack, other factions participated in the infiltration, including the Palestinian Islamic Jihad. Now we remember that word from back in 2001 and 2002 after 9/11. The scale of involvement. The attack involved roughly 5,600 fighters crossing the border in 3 waves, with initial assaults involving over 1,000 elite Nukba fighters. I might be mispronouncing that word. Preparation. Multiple armed groups trained together for the raid since 2020. So they had been training for 3 years for this, with joint drills practicing the tactics used on October 7th. Civilian involvement. Following the initial breach by militants, a number of Palestinian civilians reportedly entered Israel, with some taking part in looting or holding hostages. Now, granted, I've said in past videos recently that we should not be looking down on the group as a whole over the actions of a few. So in that, I want to reiterate that. Weaponry. The attack involved a massive, coordinated, and sustained barrage of thousands of rockets fired from Gaza. The leadership context. Hamas is a Palestinian Sunni Islamic group that has functioned as the de facto authority in Gaza since 2007. The attack resulted in deaths of over 1,200 people, most of them probably being at that party, primarily civilians, and the seizure of approximately 251 hostages. So after they attacked the people out at this festival, they went to the neighboring villages, I guess you would call them, where people were still sleeping in their beds. And what I remember reading and hearing about was the Hamas was shooting into these people's homes while they were sleeping. Okay, again, unprovoked. Sometimes they'd breach into the house, grab the babies. Now, I'm sorry that this is going to be a little bit graphic, so you can turn down your volume, and then I'll kind of give you a thumbs up that I'm done saying this part if you don't want to hear it. Give you a second to do that. So what they were doing is they were taking the children and the babies out of their beds, forcing the parents to go into the living rooms, and then they'd murder the babies in front of the parents before they murdered the parents. Okay, you can turn your volume up. It was horrific, absolutely horrific that happened. And yet, we're supposed to believe that Israel shouldn't be fighting back because of what Hamas did. And I just read that Hamas is partly the Palestinian people. Now, I'm not trying to say that all of Palestine was involved in this. Not all of Palestine, although I haven't done my research on it yet because I just did this research about 10 minutes before I came on here. I don't believe that all of Palestine is this Islamic State. But it sounds like maybe a good portion of them are. And they were training with the Hamas in Gaza for 3 years before the attack. And what's interesting is last year, and I'm going to do a separate video about this, but last year I decided to take my 1-year Bible and read through the whole Bible in 1 year. Because it takes, I think I've mentioned this in past videos, where it takes one bit from the Old Testament, one bit from the New Testament, and then Proverbs. So it does little snippets throughout the year. Well, wait, there was one more part of it. Psalms, maybe? Yeah. So a reading from the Old Testament, a reading from the New Testament, Psalms, and Proverbs. So about halfway through the year, Psalms ended. So then after it went through the first part of Psalms, then it had you reread through Psalms again from the beginning, because Psalms has 150 books. And so the way that they did the Psalms is the first half of the year, they went through the entire book of Psalms. So then the second half, you're rereading the book of Psalms again. So I did that, and it was just confusing to me how God brought his people out of Egypt as slaves. They were enslaved in Egypt. And I mean, we all know some of the stories, you know, the parting of the Red Sea and them being out in the desert for 40 years or whatever, and brought them into the promised land that God promised would be flowing with milk and honey. Well, where did he bring them? He brought them to Israel. But Israel keeps getting attacked. And I'll go into more detail about my understanding about what I read in the Bible. And it goes from the Old Testament even into the New Testament. They even reiterate some of the stories in the New Testament from the Old Testament, especially about that time period where they were being led out of Egypt by Moses and brought into Israel. Now, you wouldn't think that would take 40 years, but the people were grumbling, so God kept them in the desert for 40 years to help them understand that he took them away from their bad life, and he was bringing them into a better life, but they had to go through some trials. But in certain parts of it, it sounds like God kind of destroyed his own people. Maybe because they were grumbling and they were turning against him. I'm not a scholar. I've never studied the Bible. I just read through everything because a lot of these stories I had never heard in my life, because you don't hear about that in church every Sunday. So that'll be a totally separate video about what I learned and stuff like that. But why is Israel always being attacked And especially in this way. These people were out there celebrating a festival for their religion and their beliefs, and they're being slaughtered by the Hamas. If anybody can help me understand that way of thinking, please leave a comment in the video, in the comments below. So then I started thinking, you know, there's certain news stories that have gone on in the past year and the past several years that you don't really hear about anymore in the news. Number one, first of all, we're talking a lot about, you know, lately because of ICE being here in Minnesota. Thankfully, they got rid of another 1,000 people, so there is a small faction still out there. I'll get into that story in a second. So they are going to keep a few ICE agents out on the streets, but it is toned way down. Now when I leave my apartment to go shopping or whatever, or like what happened to me yesterday, 2 days ago, I guess it was. It feels different outside. It doesn't feel tense to me outside anymore. It's not like it was back in January when all this craziness was going on where you could walk out the apartment. And even though I'm quite far from where all the action was happening, you could feel it in the air when you walked outside. I don't feel that anymore. I feel a little bit safer. A little bit. So with all this immigration stuff going on, I thought, you know, in Carpathia's first term, he was talking about the wall. Do you hear anything in the news about the wall anymore? No, you don't. So I looked that information up. So as of January of 2025, last year, work resumed on the wall using previous unspent funds and contracting for multi-million dollars which was awarded for hundreds of miles for the what they call the SMART wall. So I guess the wall is still being constructed. I don't know if it was during the Biden administration. Personally, I think all these congressional hearings with especially Pam Bondi, she needs to stop pointing blame on the previous administration. That is done and over with. Let's talk about today going forward. Don't sit there and blame these Congress people that they didn't ask the previous Attorney General. Why don't you answer the questions that you are being given instead of being an arrogant little so-and-so? So getting back to the wall. It's reported that border crossings have decreased by 86% in the past year. You're not hearing about any of this on the news, at least I'm not. Of course, I'm not hawking all over the news anymore. There's projects that are underway in the Rio Grande Valley and Tucson areas, and they're saying that human and drug trafficking is significantly reduced. It didn't give a number, but it did say significantly reduced. Doesn't mean that there's not human trafficking going on within the borders of the U.S., as I talked about before. How about these cults like the Church of Wells? Granted, they're not trafficking humans, but they are kidnapping them. And I'm sure that there's probably drug trafficking going on underneath the radar. So let's talk about the heads of this government, the leaders. Remember me mentioning a few videos ago about this woman named Tricia McLaughlin? You don't really hear much about her. Well, guess what? She resigned. Yes! And she resigned due to the pressure over the murders here in Minneapolis. Could this possibly be a domino effect? Kristi Noem is next. And then maybe Carolyn Levitt. And then hopefully Pam Bondi. So Greenland kind of fell by the wayside for a little while. I don't know if it's really in the news or anything. All that's really in the news I've been hearing on Luke Beasley, because I watch him a lot, is all these fake awards that Carpathia is getting from all the, oh, I'm so mad that I didn't get the Nobel Peace Prize. I should have gotten the Nobel Peace Prize. Okay, so they're giving him a FIFA Peace Award. That's not even a real thing. How about the award for beautiful clean coal? Really? That's not even an award. They probably went to some five and dime and picked up some 10-cent award and gave it to him, making him boost his ego even more. Give me a break. So Greenland. So the deal, there's been a deal struck that says the U.S. is pursuing framework for a future deal, hoping for total unlimited access. Now remember, he's going over there to get their minerals out of their land. Oh, and by the way, did you see the video where he messed up and kept calling it Iceland? And then Levitt was like, "Oh no, he was just saying that because the country is full of ice, so he called it Iceland." Do none of these people in leadership, did they never get an education? There is a country called Iceland, thank you very much. And the guy that discovered both countries wanted to keep Iceland for himself, so he called Iceland Iceland because it's all, it's a beautiful country, to dissuade people from going there, and he called Greenland, what he did, to get people to go over to that country. Even though Iceland is a lot smaller than Greenland, Greenland is full of ice, yes. And Iceland doesn't really have a lot of ice. And that the guy that discovered them is the one that did that. So good on him. But Carpathia kept calling it Iceland instead of Greenland. Carpathia is threatening to put a 10 to 25% tariff on European goods. I wonder if Greenland is part of Europe. I guess I could look it up. Give me just a second here. I guess it would make sense. Is Greenland part of Europe? Geographically, Greenland is part of the North American continent. Politically, however, it is associated with Europe as an autonomous territory within the Kingdom of Denmark. It is not a member of the EU, but it is considered an overseas territory with special ties to it. So technically, Greenland does belong to North America. So why he's putting a tax on, or a tariff of 10 to 25% on European goods, I don't understand that. Denmark and Greenland rejected the deal, and many countries are going to Greenland to protect them from us, I guess. Anybody who lives in Greenland that might be watching this, most of America is with you. Please don't link all of us with the so-called leader of our country. Most of us hate him. So here's the big news story for today, and I'm sure you've heard about it. Andrew has been arrested. Andrew who? How about the former prince? Andrew Mountbatten Windsor. That's right, the uncle to William and Harry, and the brother of the king. He's been arrested. Some of this is going to make you laugh. His arrest is related to Epstein. It's about time. It's listed as misconduct in public office, where he passed confidential government documents to Epstein while serving as a UK trade envoy. Now, the sad part of this story is that Virginia Giuffre didn't live to see this day, which is unfortunate. I know that many people are saying, oh, she didn't take her life, after she did, claiming that she swore she would never kill herself. Well, they found that it was suicide, but it didn't, some of it may have been led by all the trauma she went through with Jeffrey Epstein, but she had trauma in her life even before she met Jeffrey Epstein. She had been sexually abused as a child prior to meeting Jeffrey Epstein. And after that, when she escaped him, she moved to Australia and met what she thought was a great guy, but that guy ended up being her husband. They had a couple kids together, a few kids, and her husband ended up beating her. So pretty much most of her life, she was abused in one way or another, which is very sad. So I think the abuse of her husband and him threatening to keep her kids away from her, because I guess they were going through a separation, probably prompted her to take her life. You know, looking back at all that she had endured in her life, I can kind of relate to that. I can empathize with her on that. So that's the sad thing, but at least she finally got justice, so her family is very happy today. So he was arrested, get this, on his 66th birthday. Happy birthday, sucker! However, he was released under investigation. Not sure why. He hasn't been formally charged. So that confuses me. He was handcuffed. He was brought to the police station or Scotland Yard, whatever they have over there. And then he was released and is under investigation. But this all happened on his 66th birthday. I was watching a video about it today. One of the reporters was asking somebody in the UK if they've heard anything from Sarah, his ex-wife, or his daughters. And they said that there have been no statements made by Sarah, Beatrice, or Eugenie about his arrest. I'm sure they saw it coming, but I'm not sure why he hasn't been formally charged. But the charge could get him life in prison if he is sentenced to that. Will he be brought to the U.S.? That's a question that has yet to be answered. We'll see. So then let's go to a little bit more current events, even though I really don't want to talk about this guy. I was looking up Greg Bovino. For those of you that don't know, he was the head of the CBP here, Customs and Border Patrol here in Minneapolis, and he was the one that was mainly responsible for the 2 murders that happened here and all the beatings and all that stuff. People being pulled out of their car, all their cars and their homes and stuff like that. All the violence that ICE was using on the streets, which I don't see any of that anymore. There are still protests going on, but they're, again, still, they're peaceful. Apparently there was a protest outside of a Target, and I asked somebody I know that works at Target if he had heard anything about this, and he said he has heard that this is happening, and not at the Target he's at, but there are several Targets that have protests outside. And the reason they're protesting Target is because apparently they are allowing ICE raids to happen inside the store. Haven't looked too deeply into that, but my friend said he was going to keep me informed on that information. So Greg Bovino was, shortly after the second murder, was sent out of Minneapolis. Now this comes maybe not surprisingly, after Minneapolis, the Twin Cities, held that ice out strike on the streets of Minneapolis in 44 below wind chills. And then the following week, when the country did another ice out strike in certain cities, major cities, from California to New York, maybe Hawaii, maybe Alaska, I didn't hear about those, but there was a nationwide ice out strike. And then after that, all of a sudden, oh, well, maybe we should relook at how ICE is running their raids here in Minneapolis. So that's why they've kicked out a lot of ICE agents here. It started out with 700, and then they got rid of another 1,000. So I don't know what we're down to as far as ICE agents on the street, but it's considerably less than what it was at 3,000. Maybe it's at like 1,300, and I think they were even going to try to get rid of more. I don't know, but things are much more peaceful out there. So Greg Bovino was kicked out and brought back to El Centro in Southern California. Like I said before in one of my other videos, that's about an hour east of San Diego. So he is now considered the chief of the El Centro sector in California. He's still working for the CBP, and there were protests in El Centro when they found out that he was coming back there. Big surprise. So that's about all the information I have about him. So I just wanted to come on here and start putting a spotlight on some of these stories we're not hearing about so much in the news, hoping that it'll get all of you to do a little bit more research, and maybe share that with me in the comments below, and let me know if there's any more information that you'd like me to get out there. I can certainly look it up and do some more research. I still have a little bit more time before I go back to work. So, as today is the 19th of February. And right now, the way it stands before I go see the doctor on the 2nd of March is that I'm supposed to return to work on or about March 9th. So they do have a portal where they have the schedule up online or on the phone. So I am looking at that. So next week I should find out when they're going to start scheduling me. They will probably schedule me full-time hours. But my doctor might have a different opinion about that. So when I go see the doctor on March 2nd, I'm guessing he's probably going to send me back to work with limited hours and with a weight restriction. Because even though I can raise my hand almost over my head straight and about shoulder length this way, it is kind of hurting a little bit. The physical therapy is working, but there's still a little ways to go. And I may have said this in previous videos, but I haven't really talked much about my arm lately. The pain, the fracture in my shoulder is actually like right about here. Although when I did get the second x-ray done in January, the fracture wasn't nearly as prominent. The bone is growing back together, which is a good thing. So the bone is probably looking normal now. I won't know that until March 2nd. I'm sure they'll do more x-rays on March 2nd. But it's the muscle right here that hurts when I lift my arm. So in my videos, you notice that I do use my right hand more than my left, but I do sometimes lift my arm up. So the physical therapy is working. My arm is getting a little bit better, but I just can't reach too much over my head or too much out to the side yet. Because that does hurt in the muscle right here. Not so much underneath, but like right here. And then sometimes with some of these exercises I have to do, it does hurt like up here in the shoulder into my neck a little bit. Especially this one that I have to do where I have to take my hand along a door frame and then like walk forward to pull my hand up as much as I can. And then hold it there for like 5 to 10 seconds. So that's a new exercise that I just got this week, which does really hurt my shoulder because it's not something I'm used to doing. I know all along the physical therapist has been telling me to try to use my arm a little more every day, which I have kind of been doing. They are working me with weights now, so I have a 5-pound weight that I got from Sea-Dog that I have to do, like arm curls or bicep curls or whatever they're called. That's not so hard because that part of my shoulder I keep against my body. So it's basically working in here on my arm, not so much up here because I'm not moving my arm out. It's just this way. So that one doesn't hurt so much, but now they're having me work with a 1-pound weight to raise that up to my shoulder length and back down. It seems pretty easy because 1 pound is like nothing, But try doing that like 10 times in a row, and your arm does tend to get a little bit sore, even if you have nothing wrong with your arm. So that's getting a little bit tough. But at least at work, with the job that I have, I can do a lot with my right hand. I mean, this arm, not a problem, moving any which way, okay? This one, not so much. So it is getting a little bit better every day. And I have scheduled 2 more physical therapy appointments. And then we'll see what the doctor says if I'm supposed to continue physical therapy, or, maybe not do it as often. Maybe every other week rather than every week. I don't know. Just so happens that I've been scheduling my appointments on Mondays. So got 2 more appointments to go scheduled at this point, and then I go see the doctor and hopefully go back to work around March 9th. So, because I'm sure you guys can understand, I'm going stir crazy. I've been putting out a lot more videos, that's for sure. But I've been going kind of stir crazy. But as I've said in past videos, the one good thing about me not working is, number one, I didn't have to deal with all the protests and the craziness that was going on out there with the Capitol ice. I didn't have to deal with the sub-zero temperatures, and I was getting paid. So that's 3 very good things that was better than the last times that I've had to leave work. One, for when I hurt my foot. For those of you that are new, I had Achilles tendonitis. A year ago in December, I had the surgery for that after going through physical therapy and exhausting every other possibility I could do. I opted for the surgery, so I was out of work for a month, unpaid. But at least I knew that that was coming, so I was saving my money at that time. Because that I couldn't really associate with work. So I had the surgery. My foot's doing a lot better now. Of course, with the temperature changes, I can feel it in the foot once in a while. And then for years, I had suffered from carpal tunnel because I had done data entry for 30 years, which I mentioned in my Who Am I video. So at work, because I'm a cashier, I deal with cash. Because yes, my company still uses cash. You can pay with, most people use credit card, but you can also pay with a check and cash. And so when I was trying to pull the cash out of the drawer or take the people's cash, I couldn't feel that cash in the tips of my fingers. And so that surgery or procedure came a lot quicker, so I didn't have as much time to save up enough money. So I was out of work for 3 weeks with this procedure. Now you can't even see the scar on my hand. So, because it's so faded. So it looked a lot worse the day that I took the bandages off. But now my foot's doing well, my hand is doing well. I can feel my hand like nothing ever happened. Seems like my health problems have gone from my foot, my left foot, my right hand, and now my left shoulder. So there's no more body left to have any problems with. I kept telling people at work that after I was out with my left hand, I said, one more thing happens to me, just take me out back and shoot me. And then I fell at work and I hurt my shoulder. So hopefully this is the last thing I have to deal with. At least I didn't have to have surgery on the shoulder, and I didn't have to have it in a sling or anything. But anyway, I was also going to tell you about my day. Was it yesterday? It was 2 days ago, because today is Thursday. Today's Wednesday, right? No, today's Thursday. See, being home, I don't even know what day of the week it is. So today is Thursday. So 2 days ago, Tuesday, I'm sitting at home and I'm like, okay, finally I can have a day to myself where I'm not going to do anything. I'm not even going to get dressed or anything like that. I'm just going to stay at home and, play on my phone all day and watch videos. About 10 to 12, Silver Store called me. Now, kind of backing up a little bit, a couple months ago, she got a letter in the mail saying that she was being called up for jury duty. And her jury duty was supposed to be on the 17th of February. She was trying every excuse, like all of us do, to try to get out of it. Well, my mom talked her into at least going to do jury duty, because my mom has been on jury duty before. I've been called up a couple times for jury duty. I got excused the first time because the kids were real little. That was here in Minnesota. One time when I was living in Illinois, I got called up for jury duty. I went down and was asked if I knew anybody, all of us jurors were asked if we served in the police force or we knew of anybody that worked for the police force. And I had a friend of the family that worked in the police force down in Illinois. So I raised my hand. I told them what my friend did, and they excused me. So I'm guessing they thought I might be biased towards my friend, because maybe it had to do with police officers, the trial. So I got excused, and I didn't have to serve on a trial, which is a good thing. But Silver Star was trying to get out of doing jury duty. So she decided she's going to go ahead and do it. So she was supposed to call in the night before her jury duty, and if she wasn't called up the next day, then she was supposed to call the next day. Every day for 2 weeks, she was supposed to call up. So she called in the night before, and they said, no, you're not scheduled for jury duty tomorrow, so go about your daily business. So she was going to come over and watch a couple videos that we had made like 2 years ago that were really funny. She was going to come over and watch those and see if she wanted to use them on her YouTube channel, which she still hasn't made another YouTube video yet. So, for those of you that saw my first video of Who Am I? So, I'm sitting in bed playing my game in my pajamas, 10 to 1 in the afternoon. I get this frantic call from her. Mom, I'm almost to your apartment and I really need a ride downtown because I was called up for jury duty. What? So I'm like, okay. She goes, I don't have any money to get a ride down there with Uber, so I really need you to bring me downtown. Folks, I don't like going into downtown Minneapolis. I really don't. But since she had to be down there, I said, well, what time do you got to be there? She said, 1:15. This is about 10 to 1, 5 to 1. I'm easily a half an hour away from downtown. I said, there's no way I can get you down there by 1:15. No way. She goes, well, I need somebody to get me down there. I'm like, okay, so I quickly get dressed. We rush out the door. I'm flying down the highway, keeping within the speed limit. And whatever. And so I get her down there, and we're doing I can't remember where the government center is down there, so we're using GPS. The GPS gets me into a parking garage near the Target Center. I'm like, okay, well, how far do we have to walk here? And I thought, well, I could just drop her off and then turn around and go home. But if she doesn't get called up and I'm on my way home and she calls me and needs me to pick her up again, I'm going to need to somehow turn around and go back into downtown Minneapolis. I thought I'll just stay with her till I know for sure she's going to be there. And if she's going to be there for a few hours, then I'll go home and then come back and pick her up. We get out of the parking garage. She still has the GPS pulled up. She practically ran the whole way. I was fast walking, which I really shouldn't have been doing. 1 mile away. Yeah. From the Target Center to the Government Center was a mile. Like, oh my God. And I would have gone a different way, but that's the way the GPS sent me. And by the time I was already in the parking garage, I was already at the gate to get my ticket, to get parking, to park in this parking garage. So I'm like, oh my God. So we're stopped at these intersections that we had to wait for the crosswalk and everything. This is like 1:30 now, so we're already 15 minutes late. And of course, walking that far does take a little while. So we finally get to the Government Center. We get up to the 24th floor where she needed to be. It's now 1:45. So she goes in, she checks in at the kiosk, she goes in. I'm sitting out in the area where I can be. And not 2 minutes later, she comes out. She goes, well, because I was so late, they rescheduled me for April. Oh! So I looked at her and I went, now I'm mad. She goes, I know, it's not my fault. And I went, I understand that, but, why couldn't they tell you this last night? Or why couldn't they give you more time to get to the government center? I said, did you at least explain to them? And she goes, yeah, they were really nice. She said, I explained that I didn't have a ride and we had to come from a half an hour away, and they understood, so that's why they scheduled me for April, because they were already pulling the panel for her group of people that needed to be in there. So as we're walking back on that floor, I stopped her. I put my hands on her face, pulled her face close to me, and I said, do yourself a favor and start saving money now so that you can pay for a ride down here for April. Because I said, in April, I'm not going to be as available as I am right now. You're lucky I'm not working. Because I said, if I was working, you'd be screwed because I would have been working that day. So I'm like, oh my God. So we get out and I said, we're taking a leisurely walk back to the car. Which in a way, in that respect, I was happy that she didn't get called up for jury duty, because then I would have had to walk that mile back to my car by myself. I don't like walking in downtown Minneapolis. I can't even tell you the last time I was in downtown Minneapolis. 2001, 2000, something like that. That was the last time I was at the government center when I had to go to court with David about the kids. Oh my God. So we get back to the car, get on the highway, and we're driving home. And we're outside Minneapolis now. Well, I've seen the videos. I've seen how these ICE agents are dressed. And the fact that I said that, you guys are all going, oh no, don't panic. Obviously nothing happened. But my anxiety went up. I see these cars driving on the road. Now granted, yes, a lot of cars, a lot of SUVs have tinted windows. So I'm seeing 3 cars, 3 SUVs in a row in the lane next to me. I see a vehicle behind me that looked a little suspicious. One of these cars somehow gets in front of my vehicle. As he's coming around me, I look in the door of the vehicle. They were wearing ICE uniforms. I'm like, oh my God. Now, keep in mind that Silver Star, because she's been called up for jury duty, she has kept away from the news. So she has no clue the names of the people that were shot. She knows that there were 2 people shot and killed during these ICE raids in January. She doesn't know any other information because we didn't want to subject her to that in case she was called up for a jury for that case or any of those cases. So she is totally clueless about what's been going on out there. She's been going about her life like nothing is going on. And me, being the worrywart, was panicked every time she would go out, especially on the days that these murders happened. So she has no clue what's been going on. She hasn't been watching the news. She doesn't know how the vehicles look or how these agents are dressed. So she's next to me in the car, doing something on her iPad or whatever, not really paying attention. I see these ICE agents around me, and I'm like, oh my God, this is why I haven't been leaving my house. So like I said, I was all over the news, and I was seeing how these people, these innocent people that were just going about their lives, I mean, yeah, some of them were following the ICE agents, but like that one woman that was pulled out of her car that was disabled, she was going to a doctor's appointment. It was clear that she was not following them. And she was yanked out of her car by like eight officers or whatever, 8 agents, the GC. So that thought popped into my head as I'm driving. And I'm like, oh crap, what do I do? So I immediately backed away from the vehicle that pulled in front of me. I'm basically blocked in, or boxed in. I got one in front of me, two alongside me, and one behind me. Now, granted, they weren't after me, but I made sure I kept my distance, and it's not like I was following them the whole way. They were kind of around me on the highway, and the guy pulled out in front of me, and I thought, okay, using my knowledge that I have from these videos I've watched, this guy could try to brake check me, and if I'm too close to him, I could hit him, and that would give them reason. So I'm trying to remain calm in the car for Silver Star's sake. But I'm like, okay, I gotta watch what I'm doing. And I'm kind of side eye to the guys next to me in the cars. And I'm kind of seeing that they've got ICE uniforms on as well. And they kind of keep up with me. I start slowing down. The two cars alongside me kind of slow down. The guy in front of me kind of slows down a little bit. I'm trying to keep my distance from the guy in front of me to prevent an accident that he would have caused that they could have pinned on me. Now, granted, there were other cars around. It wasn't at night, and it was, in a kind of a public area. But I know these guys, they just need a reason. So I slowly reach out and I grab Silver Star's arm. And she looks up and she's like, Mom, what's going on? I went, I don't want to make you panic, but... And I kind of like moved my eyes around because I knew she was looking at me. And she's like, Mom, you're not doing anything wrong. I said, do you think they care? I said, you have no idea what they will do. I said, they just need a reason. They will yank me out of the car and pepper spray you. So she was acting like it was no big deal. Thankfully, the guy behind me gets off and goes on to another highway. The guy in front of me eventually goes on to another highway, thank God. And the two just kind of kept going. It took me maybe about 5 minutes to calm down from that situation. But thankfully, I didn't get in an accident. Nothing happened. They were just kind of around my car. So, Clary, if you're watching this, that's why I didn't tell you, because I didn't want you to freak out, because I knew you were freaked out that we were in downtown Minneapolis. So then, Silver Star had been talking to Durfee Wolf throughout the day, and he wasn't feeling well. So, I'll try to make this story short because my battery's starting to die a little bit, just a little. And we go out to eat because Silver Star was hungry, so we went to Five Guys. And as we're sitting there, Durfee Wolf's mom calls me because she was going to call me back the other day. Or maybe I called her to find out what was going on. So Silver Star is telling Durfee Wolf that he needs to go to the emergency room or urgent care or something. So I'm like, well, what's going on? She said, he's feeling faint. He can't stand. I'm like, well, that's not good. So I don't remember if I called his mom or she called me, whatever. But so I'm talking to Durfee Wolf's mom. Silver Star's talking to Durfee Wolf, and we're sitting across, she and I are sitting across the table from each other. So his mom is out and about running errands. She's not even home. He doesn't drive because he doesn't have a license, and he's home by himself. Well, we were about maybe 15 minutes from where he lives at that point, maybe 10 minutes, and she was out and about with a friend of the family and running errands. So she asked me, in the meantime, she and I hung up, Silver Star and Durfee Wolf hung up, she called Durfee Wolf. They both called us back, so again, we're playing this like phone tag type thing. So she tells me on the phone, get him to the hospital by our house, and I'll meet you there, because that's where his insurance will take care of it. So we immediately, I mean, we were pretty much done with lunch anyway. So We immediately packed up our stuff, get in the car, go down, pick him up. He's having a hard time getting to my car. Bring him to the hospital. Well, when I go to urgent care, it's not really at a hospital. It's more like at a clinic, but they have an emergency room and an urgent care there. Kind of one and the same. You go to the same area. Well, when they call you back in urgent care or emergency room at this place that I go, when I have to go, they keep you in the back room. Even if it's busy up front, they keep you in the back room. This place, he went back, got an EKG, came back out to the waiting room. Went back in, got checked in, came back out. Went back in, got blood draw, came back out to the waiting room. I'm like, this is the most ridiculous thing I've ever seen in my life. Why do they keep sending him back out to the emergency or into the waiting room instead of just keeping him back there? But I guess that's the way this hospital works, because it was pretty busy. I mean, the waiting room was pretty full, and they didn't have as many rooms back there, I guess. So that's why they had to keep sending him out. Then they did an ultrasound on him. Short story is he has gallstones. So he has to schedule a day surgery to get the gallstones removed. I don't know how long he's had them. He doesn't know why he felt faint and weak. He didn't think that that was associated with the gallstones. Maybe it is, I don't know. He didn't seem to be in any pain, but now he has to have day surgery, which I don't know if he scheduled it or not. When I talked to him yesterday, I asked him if he did, and he never responded. So he's probably resting up. He doesn't have a prescription medication. He just has to take Tylenol and ibuprofen, which his mom already has a lot of that on hand anyway, because she also has health problems of her own. So that's where things are at. So that was my day on Tuesday. It was meant to be a very quiet day. I left the house around 1 o'clock, didn't get back until almost 9 in the evening. Most of that time was spent in the waiting room at the hospital. So yesterday, we had snow all day long. So I didn't go anywhere yesterday. Today, it's a little bit warmer outside. I might go out and get some milk or something. I do need some milk, but I can live without milk for a day. I have been wearing these lidocaine patches on my arm that I'm out of, but I can live without lidocaine patches for a little bit. So I still have some food in the house, so I'm not like starving. But I do need milk for my shakes that I have every morning. So at some point I'm going to have to get out and do that. Maybe tomorrow. It's supposed to be a little colder tomorrow, but not like sub-zero like it was in January. I mean, we have been pretty blessed over the last couple of weeks. It was getting up into the 50s. So at least the day that Silver Star had to go downtown, it was a nice day. It wasn't snowing. It was like in the 50s. But down there, it's kind of like being in Chicago, because it was pretty windy because you got all these tall buildings and everything. So yeah, that was my Tuesday. So I know this is kind of a hodgepodge of information, but I thought, I kind of want to get these stories that you haven't heard about in the news out there to kind of put a bright light on them again, and maybe you guys can do some research on them. I'm probably not going to do any more research unless you guys put a comment down below and want me to do research. And if you do, tell me which story you want me to do more research on, and I can certainly do that. Or tell me the information you know. That way it kind of gets out to everybody and I don't have to make another video. But the reason I'm wearing the shirt and the hat is because that's the next major holiday, and it's my favorite holiday, which is St. Patrick's Day. Now granted, yes, I am Irish, but I have had customers at work tell me that I'm not Irish because I don't drink, which is very true. Which I guess also makes me not German because I don't drink beer. I don't drink any kind of alcohol. And I guess I can't really be French because I don't smoke either. I'm probably the cleanest person you've ever met in your life. Never drank, never smoked, never did any kind of street drugs, never have, never will. So I do take over-the-counter medication when I have been prescribed things like, well, with the exception of Vicodin. That was from years ago. Had no idea I was going to act like that. But anyway, if you don't know what I'm talking about, go down on my channel, go to my channel, scroll down a few videos, and I have one that I put high on Vicodin. It's really quite funny. I had to videotape it off of my computer, and that's one thing I keep forgetting to put in my videos. Right now, I don't have editing software, so that's why I try to watch my time. I do have videos from when myself, Silver Star, and Drafay Wolf went out to San Diego in 2024, but they would have to be edited. And I did at one time have editing software, but it got to the point where I couldn't afford it anymore, so I canceled it. That was with Filmora, Wondershare Filmora. That one was working really well, but they were charging like almost $50 a month. And at the time, I didn't have that money. So I had to cancel that. And then when I started getting the money back, I thought, well, what other editing software can I try? So I tried Adobe Premiere. It wasn't as much. It was like $23 a month or something. But for some reason, it wasn't working with my computer because I have an older computer. My computer came out right when Windows 10 was coming out. So, and I haven't had the money to get a new computer. So Adobe Premiere was not working for me. So I had to cancel that one as well. So right now I have no editing software. But I do have videos from a couple years ago that I would love to share with you. So as soon as I can get the money to probably sign back up with Filmora Wondershare, which I'll probably get another notification from my bank saying it's a scam, that I have to say, no, I actually did this, because that's what happened. Because apparently they work out of Europe. Their company is based out of Europe, so every time I sign up for it, I get a notification from my bank going, oh, I think we got a scam here. No, it's me, trust me. So then they put it through, but then I'm getting charged like $50 a month, $50 a month. But at least it works for me. So so I would love to get some of these older videos out to you that need to be edited, but right now I don't have editing software. So I did want to make that very clear to you, which is why my videos kind of end at an hour, and I try to get as much information to you as I possibly can, instead of splitting it up into different videos and then putting them all together. So I do have some videos, obviously, that have been edited, but that's when I had the editing software that worked with my computer. But in the last couple of years, I don't think I've been able to do that. And when I do, I have to film it off my computer. So that's why this Vicodin video was taken off my computer, so the quality on it is horrible. And the reason I did that, and I know I put this in a video that I have since taken down, was because I have a magnet on my fridge that has my real name on it. And as you know, I'm very private on my YouTube channel. So I didn't have the editing software to blur that out. So I had to film it off of my computer so that I can put a piece of paper up over my computer so that it wouldn't show my name. I know I wasn't exactly perfect with it all the time because Clary was filming me and moving the camera around a lot. That was the funny part of the video. Here I am. And for those of you that have seen it, I know you're laughing. For those of you that haven't, you will laugh once you see it. Reference to that video. But that's why I had to film it that way. And I know I was going somewhere before I got off on the tangent about my editing software, about my Vicodin video. Oh, because I said I'd never do drugs. So I have, in the past couple years, had been prescribed an opioid. Wasn't Vicodin. Although one time for my hand, I was prescribed Vicodin. I did not feel that because of that video, but I was prescribed oxycodone, I think it was. But I never took one pill. It was like 8 pills or something that was in the bottle. And so I went through my medicine cabinet in the last couple of weeks, and I noticed those pills were still in my medicine cabinet, unused, and they expired a year ago. So I took it to my local grocery store that has a pharmacy in it that you can deposit expired, unused medication. So I took those there. Was never really my intent to ever take them anyway, but I filled it just because the doctor told me to fill it. So I guess that's money lost on my part because I did have to pay for part of it, but it was from over a year ago with my hand surgery. So yeah, I've never smoked, never did drugs. Yes, I grew up Catholic. Yes, they did serve wine. But when it came time for me to take the wine, basically all I would do is I would tip the cup just so that I'd feel the liquid on the outside of my lips, and then I'd give the cup back to the priest, and kind of I would like lick it off my lips, but I never drank it. I never swallowed it. And there was one time back in the day, back when I was 18 and it was legal to drink at that time, I did try a wine cooler, but I didn't like it. So, and I've seen where people have a good time, which ends up with their head in the toilet and them feeling like crap the next day and throwing up. So I'm like, to me, that's not a good time. I'd like to be on my deathbed and remember my life. So that's why I have never smoked. I've never done drugs. I've never drank. Never have. Never will. So that's my life. So I hope thank you for joining me today. And while I'm telling you a few stories, and hopefully your day is going well, and hopefully you guys will have a good rest of your day, whatever time of day it is that you're watching this. So I guess at this point, this is my outro, and I promise you I won't keep rambling on. So we'll see you guys on the next one, and you have a sunny day. Bye-bye.